All right, here we go again. The combo back in business for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario, oakridgeford.com. Norm in London, Mike in Cheektowaga, New York, USA, planet Earth. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. The Leafs coming off a 5-4 loss in Colorado, giving up 4 unanswered goals after taking a 4-1 lead. It's an overtime victor for that monster that comes out of Denver, Colorado, the Avalanche. Our buddy Nazem Kadri assisting on that game winner. The thing is, 49 shots against Jack Campbell last night. That guy was totally peppered. And it's a tale certainly of 2 games. The Leafs looking great in the beginning, then totally out of their element to wrap it up. Good morning, Mr. A.
Good morning, Norm. From Cheektowaga, the snow capital of the world. We got 18 inches on Wednesday.
Nice.
The thing is, I saw sort of like the panic reaction on Twitter last night. Oh my God, this is 4-1 Boston Game 7 all over again. I mean, okay, you have to factor in a few things. This is the NHL in COVID. I'm not to say that the reason that they lost is because Mitch Marner wasn't there. But after the game, Sheldon Keefe said, well, we didn't have 2 of our top penalty killers. We didn't have 2 of our top right wingers. Kasha on the third line, Marner on the first line. They had to move Kerfoot up from the second line to the first line. He had 3 points. Matthews was on. But you look at that team that they played against, and to get a point, I mean, yes, you were up 4-1. You should have won the game. I agree. Sheldon Keefe agreed. But to get a point out of that game with the monster that Colorado appears to be, and just wave after wave after wave, and they've got this number one line of Rantanen, McKinnon, and Landeskog that nobody can match up to. So, and late in the game when the Leafs were forced to play with 3 lines in a sense because they couldn't put the 4th line out there because all Jared Bednar would do would be to keep his first line out there for 2 minutes to create a matchup problem. It was just, I'm not going to beat on the Leafs for blowing that lead. I think, could they play better defensively? Sure. Could the referees have given them more than 1 power play? Sure. When Colorado, I think, hit 4 or 5. I mean, that's crying over spilt milk. But, I'm just saying, they chased Darcy Kemper and then really didn't get many offensive chances on Pavel Francouz, and Campbell was unbelievable. And I found it laughable after the game, Norm, when Campbell said, well, if I played the game that I expect to play, then we would have won that game.
Yeah, right.
You made an Ozzie Smith diving stop in the crease, and they were swarming around the net like bees around a hive, and you still got a point out of it. So it wasn't the greatest of games. It wasn't the greatest of outcomes, but they got a point, and this is this next month or so is going to be a challenge for this team.
This is the combo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario, oakridgeford.com. I have trucks coming in, 2022 F-150s. Get at me. The Leafs Convo, gmail.com. I am Norman James on Twitter. You can get at me through the community portal on the Leafs Convo YouTube channel. If you're looking for a new or pre-owned vehicle for yourself or for your kids, just reach out to me. I will take care of you. And don't worry, you'll get that Leafs Combo discount. Sean Robertson in the chat. Jeremy W. is here. Jim Bianchini is here. We have B. Rig, Enzo the Commissioner, Save CDC, and Chris Daniels. Guys, it's really, really nice to have you aboard. It seems like it's all or nothing with the Maple Leafs. They start gangbusters and they peter out. Whatever happened to that nice, fluid, easy peasy game where they're keeping their opponent under control and taking this thing down to the last few minutes and getting it done? Like going up 4-1 and having everybody on social media talking about how Matthews is God. Yeah, he got his 22nd and 21st and 22nd. That's terrific. But he's scoring big goals in a game that they went bust in. And you can imagine, Mike, whether COVID is interrupting things or not, or we get back on track, we're going to see more of this from the Maple Leafs, where they start amazingly and then they fall apart. We'll also see the flip, where they're down 3-4, 5-1 and fire back and potentially win in overtime. It's fly by the seat of your pants hockey that is not going to work when push comes to shove. That said, they're going through the same bullshit that everyone else is right now. They got the point. We can be excited about that and happy about that. But, just looking at the standings, there are teams coming up, and then some of the big dogs are, really, showing their worth. So when all is said and done, it'll be interesting to see where the Maple Leafs fall amongst their peers. Be Skinny and Community, the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Leafs Convo. Bad defensive effort last night against Colorado. Paper Tiger defense.
Well, I would give equal credit to what I would say hellacious Colorado offense. I mean, the Leafs throughout the game. I mean, really. I mean, okay, the beginning of the game started with Colorado 7-0 shots on goal, and then Kerfoot scores the goal, and then the Leafs score 3 goals in the first period. And Keith talked about this, and I think this was a key. They're 3-0, closing at the end of the first period, and Colorado gets a goal to make it 3-1 to keep them in the game, to keep them motivated after the goaltending change. They get a 4-1 goal from Nick Ritchie, and they score. Then Colorado again scores before the end of the period to keep them interested. And then in the third period, they just put a ridiculous attack on with a crowd of 18,000 people egging them on. And the 4-3 goal, I thought was, I mean, the 4-4 goal was ridiculous in the sense that the Leafs defense was, I think, out to lunch, and Campbell was looking the other way and didn't have a chance on it. So, I mean, do I think it was a great defensive effort? No. But do I think that it was explainable because you had one of the best offenses in the NHL and you were shorthanded and you weren't able to shut them down? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we know that I think if the Leafs are going to make a deep run in this playoffs, that I think ideally Kyle Dubas is going to have to upgrade on the blue line by the deadline. And now, are they going to be able to do that? Can they create the cap space to do that? Is there a solution out there that can fit into their top 4? We'll see. We've got 2 months to before the deadline, a little over 2 months, and things could play out. Hell, they could end up, and we can talk about this later on. They could end up with Evander Kane. And I don't know if that would be a good thing or a bad thing. I think it would be a bad thing. But, there are going to be teams lined up for Evander Kane now that he's had his contract terminated and he signed someplace for $750,000. I mean, he's probably going to sign a 1-year deal, a look-see deal to prove that he can still play in the league and to prove that, he can fit in. And, yeah.
The Leafs do take on reclamation projects. Josh Ho-Sang, Nikita Gusev, they tried to necessarily work. You have Alex Galchenyuk, Evander Kane. Why don't we exhume the corpse of John Kordic and bring him back into the mix and see if we can't straighten him out too, yeah. Mike. I mean, by any means necessary right now at this point. Who made the comment in the chat here? Sean Robertson. Supposedly, this has been the best 25-game stretch in franchise history, a fragmented one, discombobulated one. Yeah, statistically, quietly, putting a nice little run together. But in the end, what will it mean?
Well, 24-1 in the last 25. That was going into yesterday's game. That was their record. That was in between a 4-game losing streak, and then they became red hot. And again, the thing is, the test is going to come over the next couple months because of the schedule, because of what's going on. Right now, like for the rest of January. This last night was the beginning of a 6-game road trip.
Yeah.
Spread over 2 weeks. Vegas, Arizona, St. Louis, Rangers, Islanders.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the month, they play 1 home game. Now, that is because the Ontario government and Manitoba and Quebec have basically said no fans. I mean, okay. I mean, that's
two types of systems, Mike. I mean, the United States is a cavalier, let's go, let's conquer kind of thing. this is a more of a socialist country that's completely different the way they operate up here, even with Dougie Ford at the helm.
Well, I mean,
It is what it is.
I get it, but I'm just saying that I don't think that either approach is workable. I don't think that being completely wide open and willy nilly is the way
If
to go.
this pandemic continues to affect the Maple Leaf schedule, then we can't deal with this pandemic anymore. This is a
Yeah, well,
we need some fluidity here for the Maple Brothers. Forget this pandemic.
Well, what I'm saying here, seriously.
No, I understand.
What I'm saying here is right now you've got the 3-week gap for the Olympic break. They haven't scheduled 9 games. Right now, between now and January 26th, there's 6 road games. They're playing 7 of their next 8 on the road between now and February 1st. This is where your season's going to be made. And then on top of that, now you're going to have a bunch of games rescheduled in that 3-week gap. And if they can't reschedule those games, they're going to have to fit them in on an already packed schedule at the end of the year. And the league doesn't want to expand the regular season. They want the end of the playoffs to happen by the end of June. They want the draft in early July. That's the reality here. So this is where the Leafs, the depth that Kyle Dubas has assembled is going to come to the forefront. And last night they played Kyle Clifford and Brent Sene on the 4th line, and at a certain point they really couldn't put them out there. And I think Clifford was out there when the 4th goal was scored. Not to say that he was at fault for it, but they need depth just like every other organization needs depth, because you're going to have to be calling on these players to play more than normal.
Mike, in that stretch coming up on the road, it looks like the least competitive of the group will be Arizona. And we've seen the Leafs take on teams like that in the past with the expectation of the 2 points and come out with their tails between their legs.
Right.
So not only are they on the road, not only are they dealing with fewer bodies because of COVID and discombobulated schedule, they're going to be in it against teams that will have home ice advantage, will have fans in the stands. And if the Leafs speed wobble here, it could get pretty bad. And they wrap up this road trip, I believe, with Long Island. The last time they took on the Islanders, they beat them pretty well. So that retribution's on the minds of Lou Lamoriello's boys. And so this is going to be tough sledding here.
And that was
the challenge.
And that was the case with Colorado yesterday. They beat the 3 on December 1, and I'm sure they had a bee in their bonnet when it came to the Leafs. Now, the one thing, and I don't think this is because he hasn't shown any ill effects, but the games are spaced out enough during this road trip, except for the back-to-back with Vegas and Arizona, that Jack Campbell may start 5 of the 6 road games. Peter Mrazek will probably play the back-to-back. And I think this is a mistake. I think they need to get Peter Mrazek more work, because when the schedule is going to really get compacted later on in the season, they're going to need Mrazek to be sharp. And if you're playing him once in a month, you can't be sharp. So I would like to see them get him more work. But Campbell's playing at such a hellacious level right now with a save percentage in the 930s. And a goals against of under 2, and that may be changed now that after giving up 5 goals last night. But he's having a fantastic season. He's probably going to be in the All-Star game if they have an All-Star game. So I understand them wanting to play him all the time, but they need to get Peter Mrazek work, and they need to play him.
Jim Bianchini, this adversity will serve the Leafs well for the playoffs. I don't know. Will it? I doubt it.
Maybe not. But see, here is the motivation for the Leafs, and I wrote about this over a couple times over the last week. Look at the division right now. Tampa Bay's in the lead, but Tampa Bay's played a lot more games than Toronto. I think Toronto has 4 or 5 games in hand. Florida is a few points ahead. I think it's 3 now.
Yeah, 4.
4. Okay. They have games in hand on Florida. They For them to have a significant chance of advancing deep into the playoffs, they need to win the Atlantic, because they need Florida to play Tampa in the first round, and those teams to beat the crap out of each other in the first round like they did last year. Now, in the end, that didn't mean anything because Tampa went on to win the Stanley Cup, but the Leafs weren't playing them. And right now, and even if the Leafs finish in first place, they're going to have a tough first round matchup. Right now, it would be Pittsburgh or Boston, and either one would be tough. But what I'm saying is to get out of the Atlantic, if they finish out of first place, if they finish in second or third, they have to play Tampa and Florida. And I don't think, honestly, I think this team is good. I think they have a lot of talent. I don't think they're going to beat both Florida and Tampa. Maybe they can beat one of them. I don't think they can beat both of them. And if they want to make a run to get to the Stanley Cup, to get to the conference final or the Stanley Cup final, they need to finish in first place. And I'm not sure how real now. I'm not sure how realistic it is. I think they can do it, but they're going to need probably to improve. And that's where I think, being able to add players before the deadline is key. And they just don't, right now, they just don't have the room to add players.
OG's Converse, what kind of identity do you think the Leafs have? So when they go into an opposing city, the team waiting for them, what are they expecting of the Maple Leafs? And Mike, you can answer this question. How would they categorize Maple Leafs hockey, and why are they fearful of it?
Right now the legacy is of pain. The legacy is of disappointment. It's been 17. Not to dwell, but it's been 17 years since they won a playoff.
Why be afraid of the Maple Leafs if you're knowing that they blew a 3-1 series lead to the Canadiens? Yeah. They have lots of offense and they look great, and then they can slip back. They have a goaltender who's trying to make a name for himself and doing pretty well, but doesn't really have the pedigree. The franchise hasn't won anything in the play. Why be fearful of the Maple Leafs? And if we're fans, why should we be? Why should we feel like there's a good chance this team can win the league and win the Stanley Cup this year? I'm not saying it can't, but why should we feel this way? Why should we feel positive and hopeful that this can be the year?
Don't ask me, because I think there's no reason that you should feel positive. Yeah. I'm sorry, like, the greatest ally of any opposition to the Leafs is the Leafs psyche. They can talk all about it in terms of, well, we're confident. We know we're a good team. Okay, when the rubber hits the road and you get to the playoffs and they're playing Tampa or they're playing Florida or they're playing whoever in the first round, okay, prove it to me. Okay, play with confidence, play with, play the right way, so to speak, be on the right side of the puck, get the good goaltending, have the good special teams, then you win. And if you don't, and you use the what happened last year or what happened a couple times against Boston as examples, I think they were as good a team as Boston, but Boston had winners. They had Bergeron, they had Marchand, Krejci, who won Stanley Cups. They won those series because those players had positive experiences. And the Leafs, none of this current group, nobody, except for guys that they brought into the organization like Jake Muzzin, who won a cup. Nobody who was an original Leaf, Riley, Matthews, Marner, none of them have won playoff series. Tavares won one playoff series with the Islanders in his tenure there. So their legacy of disappointment is something that they've earned, and they've got to fight through that. Teams, after a while, get through that, and they have to.
Chris Daniels, this team can beat any team in the league, which is true, but I think he's trying to say they can beat themselves, and that's the biggest issue. It sums it up. It's true, Chris, OG's Converts, Mike. It certainly is true. You can beat any team in the league, but you know what? You got to beat them again, and then again, and then again, and then get into the playoffs and beat the shit out of them, right? We haven't had a chance to see this team move forward in the postseason. And we knew, guys, we would be here. Going back to the disappointment after the Habs series, we knew that this was going to be a laborious, protracted, disappointing, frustrating, excruciating process. We are here now, closer to the next opportunity to make amends. And the situation's a lot better than many of us thought it would be. but the Reaper always lurks. And for us as fans, for us certainly, for the team certainly, you can't blame us for feeling negative about the positive until we're given proof that this team can take the next step. And that's why I asked about the identity. You know, fans are so excited about God, Austin Matthews. He's better than McDavid. He's better than Gretzky. He scored his 21st and 22nd. Put more posters of him on the wall. Throw up more memes. So great. That's great. Amazing. But they lost. If he wins another Rocket Richard trophy, is that good enough for you? When do we get to the point where this guy's got to be the centerpiece of a winning organization, a winning group that pounds its way through the league, through the playoffs, and into a situation where it's going to win a championship? I'm not saying it's not going to come, but man, the team and the organization has to get real about forming a serious identity and going on a crusade that results in a major success. Just a few more minutes, Mike, and I wanted to ask you about how the next 6 games are going to are they going to rely on this team just buckling down, battening down the hatches and getting to work? Or how much does Sheldon Keefe's intricacies, the way he might manage this team, how will that affect whether this next few games is either a success or a failure?
Well, I mean, going into last night, they were 8-4-1 on the road. I think they had won 7 games in a row on the road. I think the effort last night against a lesser team than Colorado would have been good enough to get 2 points. Going into Vegas is going to be a tough contest. Vegas is playing very well. They're at the top of the Pacific Division.
Mm-hmm.
St. Louis is at the top of the Central Division, so these are going to be tough games. They really, they have to win the Arizonas. Those type of games have traditionally, as you said, those are the games that usually they disappoint, where you have to win and you don't. But if they go over 500 on this 6-game road trip and they're 0-1 right now, then I think that they should consider themselves fortunate. I mean, that's what you have to do. You have to be over 500 on the road, and you have to be like 750 at home. But that might not be good enough. That might not be good enough to beat out teams like Florida and Tampa, who just keep winning. And if you look at Florida, you look at Tampa, okay, they lost all those players that they lost last year. They lost Tyler Johnson. They lost Yanni Gord. They lost Blake Coleman. They lost Barclay Goodrow. Okay, what did they replace him with? Corey Perry, he's got 10 goals. They got Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, who's a good penalty killer. They keep adding, and I have to credit Kyle Dubas for restocking the shelves. I think we talked about this before. Bunting is an effective player. Kasha is going to be it has been good. Has had a few injury problems, but has been good. David Kampf is a good third line center. The Ritchie experiment now is a failure, but I mean that's what Dubas is going to have to do over the next few years with spending $40 million on 4 players. You're going to have to find bargains at the dollar store. And if you can do that, you can win.
Right. But you take the same guys, clone them, put one set of them into the Leaf situation and one set of them into the Lightning situation. Which players will succeed? Which players will succeed over the other? It will be the Lightning players because it's a winning culture. Well, they've won Stanley Cups.
It's not only that it's a winning culture. I mean, do you think that the core group, do the Leafs have a defenseman as good as Victor Hedman? No. Do they have a player as good as Steven Stamkos? Well, Matthews is good. It is just as good, maybe better, and he's younger.
Now,
But Steven Stamkos, right? But Steven Stamkos at this point now he's got 2 Stanley Cups under his belt, and Kucherov and Palat and Killorn and Braden Point and Sorrell. It never ends. Last night it's like, okay, you got the one line Rantanen, Landeskog, McKinnon, then Kadri comes and Burakovsky comes. It was just like never. Colorado was a deeper team last night, and that's why they won. Now Toronto, I think they have some, quality depth with veteran guys like Spezza and Simmons and, now Kasha and Kampf. when they're fully there, I think they can be competitive with those teams. But when you lose a couple of them and you're playing Brent Sene, and you're playing Kyle Clifford, and he's playing significant minutes, and Kyle Clifford is not as fast as he used to be, the flaws will show.
Well, here's the good thing, guys. We have games coming and games in abundance. So that's exciting. Will the Leafs rise to the challenge? And what does rising to the challenge mean in these crazy circumstances? They don't have to run the table. They need to collect points, but I just want to see this team form an identity. Just, generate some momentum, become a brotherhood, play a 200-foot game, be responsible defensively, score when they need to, score on the power play, do all the things that a championship team needs to do, make a major impression, not only on the fans, but on the rest of the league, and fire into a situation in the playoffs that will allow you to either dominate a shitbox team that you face if you win the division, or go toe-to-toe with a team that you're probably going to be the underdog to and beat them and move forward. We all know this, guys, whether they win the President's Trophy or just squeak into the last spot, in the playoffs. This team has to win a playoff round for us to get off of its back. And that remains to be seen. I can tell you, though, right now where we are is a lot more of a positive circumstance in terms of the standings and in terms of the composition of the team than many of us thought it would, especially when you look back on the first 2 weeks of this regular season. Mike, last word to you. I don't know if you want to comment on the Vegas game and what you're expecting from it, but the floor is yours.
Yeah, no, not on the Vegas game, but just, and I think you'll hear about this week, because I think, depending on how the grievance with the PA happens, Vander Kane now will be an unrestricted free agent. And I think that, he might be somebody that the Leafs are interested in. I hope they don't go after him, because from every team that he's played with, he's a cancer. I don't want him in the locker room, but that's not up to me. That's up to Kyle Dubas.
Pull the personality of him and just bring in the player. He would be fantastic. They could use a guy like that, but it's a room full of people and individuals and humans, and you want good people, good individuals, and good humans to start with. You're hoping the rest will take shape. Evander Kane, I wish this guy well in life, but in terms of hockey, I don't know if he's got too many lives left. Mike, get at her, pitter patter, do your thing, stay safe, stay warm. We had a bunch of snow, and then 2 degrees and rain came. I like snow because I have 2 kids who need to get outside and get off their devices and just toss them in the snow and go play. We have a ski hill near us. OG's Converse, thank you very much for all of your participation in the chat. Be sure to like this post on YouTube. Subscribe if you wish. Tell your friends about what we're doing. We're going straight at it right through the season and hopefully deep into the playoffs, but that really just depends on the Maple Leafs. So that's it. For Mike, I'm Norm. Talk to you soon. Peace out.